Hello and welcome to Cornish Walking Trails. Today we're at Indian Queens.
Paradise private beach.
In today's video we're going to take a look at some of our curious, exotic Cornish place names and try and explain how they came about. Did you know there's a Barcelona in Cornwall? There's a Jericho, a Jordan and even an Egypt. In this video we are going to explore some of our exotic and curious place names in Cornwall. So this is Indian Queen's Pit. Isn't it amazing? It's going to feature a bit later in our video. So why are we in Indian Queens? We are fascinated by the name Indian Queens. Where did it come from? What's it all about? How did that come about? And there are quite a few other names in and around our county that if you're a local or a visitor and you're observant, you will have noticed strange, curious names, exotic names. In this video today, we're going to try and explain some of them.
Some are derived from our ancient Cornish language. Whilst the Cornish language is rarely spoken on a daily basis, it's still very much alive in our Cornish place names. Take a little village just outside of Newquay, for example, the village of Porth.
Porth is on the north coast of Cornwall, near Newquay. In the Cornish language, Porth can be translated as either beach or cove. The village of Porth is located at the top of a beautiful beach, which is incredibly long at low tide. There has been human settlement here for hundreds of years, with an Iron Age fort in the 6th century BC on Porth Island. In the past, ships carrying coal used to sail up the cove at high tide. As the sea ebbed away with the changing tide, the ship would be deliberately beached. Men with horse-drawn carts came from the village to unload the coal before the sea returned, and then the ship would float away once more, sailing out of the cove with the tide. So how did this place come to be called Porth? Is it simply that people would say they were going down to Porth to help unload the coal, meaning that they were going down to the beach, and the name stuck? So it really tickles me to think there must have been a conversation years ago that they thought, what should we call this place? Should we just call it Porth, as if it's the only beach in Cornwall? Fantastic. Anyway, moving on, let's think about Redruth. Redruth is in the midwest of Cornwall and was formerly a wealthy mining town. The buildings are still very reminiscent of that era. In Cornish, Redruth means red ford. But wait, it's not as simple as you think. The syllable red means ford and ruth means red. This name came about because the tin waste used to be discharged into the local watercourses, turning the rivers red, hence the name.
I didn't know that about Redruth. I just assumed that many years ago, when it was a bit of a den of iniquity, it was called Redruth because there was a flame-haired young woman called Ruth, and all the miners wanted to have their wicked way with her.
Now you are in the realms of myth and legend, aren't you? So what about Redruth then? You would think, wouldn't you, that red was just red?
Yeah, and that's the ford bit, is it?
Yeah.
Right, so the roof is the red bit.
Yeah.
That's weird, isn't it? Yeah, doesn't make any sense.
No, I know. And that's partly what I love about our Cornish place names. Now, the more exotic place name, Mexico Towers.
Oh, yes.
Now, it's down near Hale. We've been there.
Yes.
Mexico. How did it get its name?
Anything to do with tequila?
Mexico Towers is on the north coast of Cornwall, very close to Hale. Many people will walk through this area on their southwest coast path route. It is a stunning stretch of coastline with views to St Ives and Carbis Bay. And with a little imagination, you can be forgiven for thinking you were in exotic climes, drinking a mojito. It is thought that the area derives its name from a nearby tin mine. Yes, mining again. There is also local road names like Mexico Terrace and Mexico Lane and Philac nearby. However, in 1995, Wheel Mexico was found further down the coast, about 20 miles away, near St Justin Penwith. So maybe there was more than one Wheel Mexico. Others say that the area was named after Cornish miners returning from Mexico. When tin and copper prices fluctuated, some miners left Cornwall and went all over the world seeking employment in mining. It is said that where there's a hole in the ground, you will find a Cornishman at the bottom of it. But seriously, Cornish miners were highly skilled and took their knowledge with them to other countries, including Mexico, where there were silver mines. Some say that miners became homesick and returned to Cornwall. Others that the miners made their fortunes in Mexico and returned wealthy, bought land and named it after the country where they'd made their fortune. So from the sunny tropical climes of Mexico, we can head to Prussia.
Prussia, okay, so, well, Prussia was formerly a province in what is now modern-day Germany, and it used to have its own monarchy, and it had its own king.
John Carter used to live in the area. He was a smuggler in the 18th century and ran a huge operation, either with the authorities' consent or they just turned a blind eye, we aren't quite sure. He bore a striking resemblance to one of the kings of Prussia. His nickname became the King of Prussia, and everybody referred to where he lived as Prussia Cove.
There can't be many places that are just named after a resemblance to somebody else.
I know, it's whimsical, isn't it?
Isn't it?
We went there a couple of years ago on the trail of some tracks that are hewn into the rock at Prussia Cove. Let's run the clips. Prussia Cove is on the south coast of Cornwall, near Penzance. If you've watched our channel regularly, you know that we've been down here before on the trail of John Carter, the King of Prussia, one of the most commemorated smugglers. Funny way of thinking about it is that you commemorate a smuggler, but I like it. I like the fact that he's part of our Cornish heritage. Anyway, what we didn't find when we were down here, because the tide was in, it was winter, was the tracks that they've hewn into the rock to drag the carts through so that they could hide the contraband in the caves. It's low tide today, so we're going to go down hopefully and have a look for them. There's those tracks. They were gouged out the rock so they'd make it easier to drag a cart over. The lengths they used to go to. We could go down and have a look, see where they went. If you visit Prussia Cove, you can literally follow in the footsteps of smugglers. Smuggler tracks. So this is meant to be the width of cartwheels. So they would have landed their cargo and brought it up here on a cart to stash it in those caves, away from prying eyes. Is there a passage back there?
Yeah. It seems to be blocked up, if anything.
Any contraband left?
Some ropes or something right at the back there.
Is there?
Yeah. And a body.
A body of brandy.
Oh yeah.
story tells of a cave that leads all the way up to the house above us, but can't see any evidence of that now. Maybe that's a myth. We've debunked it today.
So the influence of John Carter extended beyond Prussia Cove. If you visit Foy, you'll find there's a pub in Foy called the King of Prussia.
Yeah, it's in Town Square, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very nice.
And talking of pubs, have you noticed the place name Indian Queens?
I have.
That's where we are today. So how did this place get named Indian Queens?
Let's find out.
The village takes its name from the inn or coaching house called the Indian Queen. Indian Queens is a village near the A30 at Hamburger Hill between Bodmin and Redruth. The A30 used to pass through this village until it was bypassed in 2007. Today it's much more peaceful. So how did this name come about? The village has been on the main arterial route in and out of Cornwall for centuries, with a packet service in Falmouth using this route. Passengers from all over the world would alight at Falmouth and arrive in the village, maybe spend a night at the local pub, or what was then the posting house.
Is this a clue, Sarah, to how Indian Queens got its name?
It's one of them, yes. Here.
Well,
We're getting good at these links. They're going to think we're pros.
we're not that good.
Shh, don't tell anyone. There is a local legend that Pocahontas took this route and stayed in the local pub. However, there is nothing that confirms that. Records show a Portuguese princess passing through, and maybe she was mistaken for a Native American. During the 18th century, heads of kings and queens were popular as ships' figureheads and also as pub names. Pub signs adopted images of foreign chiefs and their wives in honour of their newsworthiness. It is probably in this era that the pub adopted the name the Indian Queen. The village takes its name from the inn or coaching house. In this book we found reference to the Indian Queen as being kept by Francis Simons and then his widow Elizabeth from 1780 until 1797. In 1789 William Clark stayed here, and the bill presented to him at the Indian Queen for 5 shillings and 1 pence is the oldest record of the pub having that name. The building itself was knocked down in the 1960s, but a house today has preserved the sign over the porch and incorporated it into the dwelling. The Indian Queen, licensed brewer and retailer of beer, cider, spirits, wine and tobacco, licensed to the post horses. Whilst we're in Indian Queens, let's go and take a look at the Indian Queen's pit. Welcome to Indian Queen's pit.
Indian Queen's Pit is a Methodist preaching pit that has served the communities of Indian Queens, Fradden and St Column Road for over 150 years.
This place was inspired by Gwenet Pit. It's built inside an old mine and it's tiered in exactly the same as Gwenet, maybe not as many tiers. Isn't it amazing? So I guess the preacher would have stood over there, given his sermons. The death of this place was the schisms that were created within Methodism, and it kind of diluted the congregation into separate little religions.
Now, let's go to Hamburger Hill.
Hamburger Hill?
Yeah, you won't find it on the map, will you?
No,
No.
but if you ask a local,
They'll know. It's 'cause McDonald's is
yeah,
Hamburger Hill.
and that's it.
Yeah. But doesn't that show if sometimes place names change?
Yes.
Because of, things that exist there or happened there, isn't it? And then you move on.
So there's
Time goes by.
development in place names.
Yeah.
And thinking about that, Mousehole springs to mind. For development of place name, it is a classic example. So So let's take a look at that. We actually started talking about this back in the summer. Let's run that clip now. So as a child, my mum always used to tell me Mousehole got its name because of the small gap between the harbour walls.
Right, okay. Well, I've got some other theories on this.
Oh, really?
Well, apparently there is a cave which smugglers used.
Oh,
and the cave is shaped like a mouse hole.
Oh, okay.
So it could be that.
It used to be called
Porth Ennis.
So Porth means cove or beach, and Ennis means headland or island.
Yeah, no, there is an island just offshore, and it's called St Clement's Island, I think. So since our visit to Mousehole in the summer, we've been really curious about the name. So we've done some research, but it's probably prompted more questions than it's actually answered.
Yeah, so we started with Wiki, and all it says on Wiki is Mousehole, and it gives you the correct pronunciation as Mousehole. And it just says Porth Ennis, which is what we've already shown you in our clip. So we went to our books, we went to have a look, see what we could find, and we're going to share that with you now.
You have a book, Sarah.
I know, 1,000 Cornish Place Names Explained. And it's all in alphabetical order, very easy. So you go to M for Mousehole, and if we come down here, Mousehole, Porth Ennis, which agrees with the road sign, and it just says in English, Cornish means island cove. So that confirms what we were saying, Porth Ennis means island cove. Next one, I'm back. Next one is the Cornwall Village Book, put together by the WI. And again, alphabetical order, and we go to Mousehole. And the first thing it says, situated on the western side of the lovely sweep of Mounts Bay, is nowadays a much photographed village. And it says the name is derived from two Old English words, meow, meaning gull, and hole, a depression or basin, so Mousehole, I guess. Okay, so it goes on to say it's quite a valid description because you still have gulls and it's set in a basin. So that seems quite plausible. But we can do better than that. I'll be back. I'm back. Book 3. Mousehole, written by a local. And the very first thing she opens up with is the meaning of the name Mousehole. People wonder and ask, why the name Mousehole? This is a question we cannot answer. Hang on. Why? And she does actually go on to answer it. So she says that the Reverend Laxmara, Vicar of St Peter's, Newlyn, stated in 1878, its anglicised name of Mousehole was probably a mere corruption of an earlier Celtic form, though it is also commonly known among the Old Cornish by the descriptive name of Porth Ennis, so that crops up again, or the port of the island, which is the English translation, referring to St Clement's Island close to the village. He also quotes Mousehole in 1414, or Mousehole in the charter of Edward I. Then we jump forward in time to Richard Carew, who was a Tudor historian, and in his survey of Cornwall wrote Mousehole in Cornish is Porth Ennis, the island haven. So you're getting the gist that there's quite a lot of Mousehole and Porth Ennis going around. And it does say that near the middle of a very interesting old town we pass over a river which gave to this place its ancient and proper name of Mousehole. Hale in Cornish means estuary, and they reckon that Moes meant young woman, so it translated as young woman's river, Mousehole. Today the road sign shows the English version of Mousehole or Mousehole, and the Cornish Porth Ennis.
So it's nothing to do with mice then?
As far as we can make out, there is no reference to actual mice, mouse holes, or anything like that, although it's still kind of said as Mousehole by us Cornish. Today Mousehole is very much known as a tourist destination and famous for the story of the Mousehole cat. Anybody who's been to Mousehole will probably know the story of the Mousehole cat. That house is depicted. Is it Antonia Barber who created the story?
You're asking the wrong person, but I know it's a really long tale.
The Mousehole cat, based on the legend of Tom Borcock.
Mouser, isn't he? The cat?
Yes. So the storms were raging for days and days, and the village couldn't go out and get any fish. The village at that time was sustained by fish. Tom Balcock, who had no family as such, did he, other than his cat, he decided that he would weather the storm and go and get some fish. And the legend has it he brought back 7 different types of fish.
What I understand of it is he took the cat with him.
Oh,
is that
really?
right? And the cat's purring quelled the storm, isn't that right?
No, I think that's the story that Antonia Barber has created.
Oh, okay. Right.
And has overtaken the original legend.
That's probably where I'm going wrong.
Yeah.
But they do celebrate Tom Balcock and his endeavours to go out and catch fish, which he did, and he brought back and he fed the village.
Yes.
And kept the villagers alive. And they celebrate that just before Christmas.
From Prussia to Mexico and even down a little mousehole. Hope you've enjoyed today's video.
Yeah, thank you for coming along with us. Hope you've enjoyed it. We've had a great time taking around all these little places in Cornwall and trying to explain why they're called as they are.
And if you have enjoyed today's video, give it a like. Maybe put in the comments your favourite place name and we'll investigate it for next time.
Yeah, and if you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to our channel. It's free on YouTube.
But for now, bye-bye.
Bye. Right, I'm off to Barcelona now.
It's off. He's going. Bye. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button, or perhaps you would consider becoming a patron to the channel, or you could make a one-off donation through our website. Thanks for watching.